Good evening. It's July 16th, 2024. Here we are, CW, back at books, travels, history, and tales. And why not have a tale tonight? A student one asked me, what's the difference between a tale and a myth? Are they the same? No, they're not. They're not the same. A myth, for all intentional purposes, back in times before these, in ancient, like Greek or Rome, it was Greek first, then Rome, because they just took all the myths and renamed them with Latin names. It's just a devil of a thing. But a myth is an element that try to explain part of our lives that didn't make sense. When trying to explain something like the seasons, in the early days, we didn't have science. They could readily say, it's a change of seasons. Instead, the truth that was easy for them was, I believe, Demeter, his daughter was kidnapped by Hades and taken down to hell. And Demeter got very upset, according to the myth, caused all the plants to wither and die, and Zeus to interfere and make a deal that his daughter would spend only part of time in Hades. And when she came back in spring, all the growth came back too. So that was an easy way for people to get it. It was a myth. Now, a tale, on the other hand, let's go to the real book. Uh, Excuse me, I'll be right back. I have to do that dunk and reach. Oh, we'll go to the real book. Tale. Okay, let me give it to you. A soft, light colored monoclinic mini powder. That's not right. Oh, crap. Sucks getting old. That was talc. Tale. Something told or related, recitable of a happening, a story, an account of true or legendary, or even fictitious. Keep that in mind. So, a tale is a story, a narrative. A myth is something to explain something that science hadn't created, at least for the ancients. A lot of times people still use the word myth about certain people, which is just, please. It's either a lie or it's not real. But here's a tale. And oh, I got to be careful because the parties are all still alive, including myself, but I'm not the protagonist in this. He is, let me give him a synonym, Marcus. And like me, he was a baby boomer, grew up in the 60s and the 70s. And like me, he had a father who used alcohol a great deal to cope. He was an alcoholic. Now, Marcus's father was a talented man. He could make furniture, finish furniture, um, cabinets. He had this fantastic knack. He worked hard and he drank hard. And it kind of weighed on Marcus for his life. So one day, Marcus's father gets this offer from an old boss of his to do some demolition work. It's good money. It's $2,700 a month. This is 1976, so it's primo. And it's 3 weeks' work. And he's excited. He asked his son, Marcus, come with me this summer and we'll go on an adventure. Okay. So I myself, I went to work at Disney World. Marcus had the highlight of the year, 1976, and he tells the story to me and several other classmates that they had to get up early in the morning and drive to Tampa International Airport. It's the first time he's ever been on a plane. They fly from there to Atlanta, from Atlanta to New York to London. He didn't realize he could pee during the plane flight. I don't know how he managed to hold that for 8 hours, but he said he was so relieved that they had an hour and a half layover. But that was, he's 17 years old. What do you expect? It's a junior year, it's a year to adventure. So he moves on. The next flight goes to Berlin, and then Berlin to Cairo, and then Cairo to Cape Town, South Africa. Then they have to drive through South Africa to Pretoria. To Pretoria, they meet, as his father puts it, a bloody limey. Marcus tells us the story that he loved baseball caps, American baseball caps, but he was obviously an English person, and he corrected Marcus. Marcus said, "No, he's not English; he's Irish, or something." And his father said, "No, he's English." He described him as a sky pirate because he had a patch over one eye and everything else. So they met him at night in Pretoria, South Africa. His job had already been prearranged. He was going to fly them to Fort Rude. It's in Rhodesia. There is no Rhodesia now. Now it's Zimbabwe, but way off the roads. And again, it's 1976. It's way before the Soweto uprising. So they get there and they take off. And I remember Marcus says, "I've got to tell you this. If my father had not been drinking and had it been daylight when we left, we would have never got on the plane." So they got on a plane. It's a small single engine thing. They take off into the night. Marcus says it's not moon bright, but it's 3/4 of a moon. And they said they had been flying for about an hour and 5 minutes. And then there was nothing. There was a constant hum of the propeller turning, and then there was nothing. Nothing. And he pretended to be asleep. He remembered hearing his father, Marcus's father, saying ungodly stuff. He was concerned. Marcus said he woke up out of a daze long enough to watch the moon 2 or 3 times as the plane was spinning. He heard for the first time an Englishman say the word bloody, not referring to splatter or anything like that. And he heard the sound of a plane going down in his ears, similar to those of the movies where they have been shot down in World War II pictures. Marcus was afraid, he said, but he pretended to be asleep. And then he said he doesn't know what happened. He heard a pop, and then the plane rose up like it was caught in a big marshmallow and then bounced twice and just rolled. They landed on the plains of Africa at night. Thankfully, though, they had the light of the moon. When he got out, they couldn't see a lot, but they could see movement far away. There was almost nothing but uh, grass vegetation, and they had rolled up almost next to the only tree that was like within a mile of the plains. There was nothing else. It's all barren, just one tree. They decided to wait until dark. I mean, for the sun to come up. And Marcus explained that almost immediately his father got sober. And they said the first thing we have to do is try to get out. Well, that was another adventure. The aircraft, besides not having probably credentials to fly in Africa, also didn't have a radio. Well, he did have a radio, it just didn't work. Didn't have a mic or anything. He didn't know exactly where he was. Marcus said he flew by stars or the seat of his pants, but that his father told him that he doesn't know his ass from a hole in the ground. And it's just amazing. So, for the next 22 days, they were in the wilderness of Africa. And Marcus said, my father was not like I had known him. He'd come out. He sobered up for one. He didn't have enough booze. And told him how to do stuff that didn't make sense but did work. Dig a hole, square. Take a piece of the wing that's tin foil. We'll put it over that hole. We'll use this coffee can. We'll put it down in the center of the hole and we'll draw the moisture out. What? Okay. He said, I don't know. All I know the next morning, we had almost three quarters of a coffee can full of water. Good water. So they started looking for food because, well, they were growing boys. And he said, we found small rodents or probably rats or something like that. And we, the pilot had like a 7 or 8 golf club that we pound them with, and we cooked them over a fire. The whole thing, fur and all, because we were afraid of ticks, fleas, and everything else. And it says surprisingly, they were easy to peel off, similar to that squirrel. And they ate that way. They gathered water. Every now and then it would rain, they said. Not long. He said it would just rain a little bit. And after the first time it rained, they realized they could take things out like lids from inside of the aircraft and put it out there and catch the water. And they survived. I asked him, I said, well, wasn't it hot? He goes, no, it wasn't hot. It was at night, it was almost, 47 degrees. During the day, it only got to about 78. And he goes, it's kind of like their winter in July. Weeks went by, 2, 3 weeks. He said, I got concerned with my father because he started to hallucinate from time to time. And one morning, I thought it was an earthquake, he said. It was not. It was elephants. They weren't even close. But my father and I watched, and we saw where they went, and we saw that they went behind a certain edge of tree about 2 miles away. We finally got up the wheel, took a bucket, and we found water. And it was nice water. It was good. It was rolling, but they boiled it anyway. He says, never once was I afraid. I heard things at night. That's when it was scary. He said, I didn't know what I was hearing, but there were animals everywhere. But we kept a fire going, he said, and it kept everything there. He said he woke up his father one day because he got up to relieve himself, and he saw something moving over the horizon. And he thought he had seen it before, but he wasn't sure because he's 17 years old. He had heard of word mirage and he thought that's what he was experiencing. But it was a different time of day, and he watched, and it was a road, not a highway. It was a dirt road, more of a trail. And that's when he saw a vehicle. And they stopped, and people were getting out. And he grabbed his father and said, "Look, wake up." And he didn't know how to explain it, but he had seen one earlier when they were in England. He goes, "There is a double-decker bus like there was in London. It's out here." And his father told him, "You need to stop drinking that water. I think it's bad." But they went out, they fired, they had an air horn or a gas can horn, fired off a signal, and the people came over and got them. And he said, "We must have stunk so bad. We'd been out there for, turned out, 22 days. And all the tourists, they were nice. He said they were German or Dutch. They would try to speak with him, but didn't always speak very well to him. They just kind of kept their distance. They were not impressed that they were American, but they didn't like the Sky Pirate. So they got back um, to Pretoria and the hotel or the motel or hotel. He said his father got in touch with the person who had made the arrangements with for this job and tried to explain to him, like, for the past 3 weeks we've been in the wilderness. Don't be angry. The man never even sent out a search party for them. He thought you lost interest, and he hired someone else. Did not launch a search for them. Now Marcus and his father, they came to an agreement that night in the hotel because the next day they were going to start their long track flying back. This is where the tale is. He says, "You can't tell your mother about this." Marcus, who said he had lost almost 18 pounds, "I will make a deal with you. I will never mention this to my mom or anybody else if you promise to stop drinking." His father was not very quick on the response, but he said, "Okay, it's a deal." And he tried to barter with him. He says, "Let me just take one drink of this." And he goes, "No, it starts now. You don't open the bottle, you don't do anything. It starts now." He said, "All right, I promise, but you can't tell your mother." Marcus agreed. So, they took a day and a half to fly back. Mom was a little concerned because they technically were 5 days late coming back. But no one had contacted her from Africa, like the guy who's going to work with. So Marcus comes back to school senior year, tells us that a little bit of the story. And I said, "Yeah, I could see that." But he was more interested in this girl. Let's call her Tina because she's also still alive. And she said, "No, you're full of crap. That never happened." That's a shame. So the tale goes on. Oh, yeah, it's not over yet. There's more to it. Years go by. Marcus, he goes off. He's a good guy. He goes off to grad school and actually gets some sort of degree you can use in government work. I think environmental science or something like that. Or maybe not. I don't, I think it was environmental science. But Tina would not date him. He asked her to the prom. She said no. Neither one of them went to the prom, in fact. No one asked her. So it comes back, and we do this, as you get older, you do high school reunions. So 30 years goes by. Tina introduces her husband to Marcus, and Marcus is still living the sweet life. Bachelor, confirmed bachelor. Not saying, and he wasn't gay, confirmed bachelor. So she goes, "This is the guy that gave me a crock of the greatest lie in the world." And her husband took interest, and he says, "Well, what was it?" Marcus goes ahead and describes the story. I hear it. I come on over. I want to start listening. And I said, "Don't forget about this other part here. About the limey, the eye patch." Oh yeah, that too. And she goes, "See, you can't prove one thing." And I said, "Oh yeah, he proved it to me. He showed me the picture." "What picture?" "Oh, that's right. The bloody limey had a Polaroid. Took a picture of the plane, Marcus and his father, who's now deceased." She goes, "Well, what's that in the background?" I gave her, I had to look all over, but I found a magnifying glass. "That's your proof." "What is it?" "That's two elephants. It's not the Republican convention. That's Africa." So I told her, "So well, you missed out." Granted, he would probably have been some sort of school teacher if he married you instead of living a lifestyle of, climbing mountains and everything else, but all that. But then Marcus tells me the other tale, the second part. He promised his father he would never tell his mother unless he passed away. His father passed away right after grad school. And I did not see this, but Marcus told me. He goes, "Mom, there's something I have to tell you about. When we were in Africa, those years ago," and she looked at him and says, "the plane crashed, landed. You all spent 3 weeks out in the wilderness, and your father stopped drinking." I said, "Yes." He said, "Yes. But he told me not to tell you." "Yeah. He told me the second day y'all were here what happened. And we decided, let's see what kind of son we raised." And he said, "My dad died knowing that I was a man of my word." That's kind of a nice tale. It's a true one. I can hardly wait to see Marcus. Hopefully, he'll be at the next reunion because I want to see Tina's fat face again. Oh, by the way, she blew up a lot. But yeah, Marcus lives a life, man. Quite a tale. Well, it's kind of history. It's part of the program. Yeah. History, tales, life of Marcus. And it goes on. Well, that's stories in the past, just like history. See you tomorrow when we talk about today.